When a building inspector disagrees with your interpretation of the code during construction, several steps can be taken to resolve the situation. The primary goal is to ensure the installation ultimately complies with the applicable code and approved drawings to protect public safety. Firstly, communication with the inspector is crucial. Discuss the disagreement respectfully and try to understand the inspector's reasoning. Providing evidence to support your interpretation of the code or approved drawings can be beneficial. Secondly, thoroughly review the relevant sections of the code and approved drawings to ensure your understanding is accurate. It can be helpful to consult with a code expert or design professional for clarification if needed. Thirdly, request a formal inspection report from the inspector. This report should detail the non-compliance and specific code requirements cited. Having a written report provides a clear basis for further discussion or appeals. Fourthly, submit a code interpretation request. Most jurisdictions have a process for requesting code interpretations from the authority having jurisdiction, often abbreviated as AHJ. Submit a formal request with supporting documentation and legal arguments to obtain an official interpretation. Fifthly, if the AHJ interpretation is unsatisfactory, you can file an appeal through the established procedures in your jurisdiction. This may involve a review by a board or commission of experts. Sixthly, litigation is a last resort and should only be considered if all other options have been exhausted. It is important to consult with an attorney specializing in construction law to assess the merits of your case before pursuing litigation. In addition to these steps, there are several additional considerations. It's important to maintain a respectful and cooperative communication with the inspector throughout the process. Document everything, keeping written records of all conversations, correspondence, and decisions made. Consider seeking support from industry professionals such as architects, engineers, or contractors for technical support and guidance. When navigating disagreements with building inspectors, it's important to remember that electrical codes like the National Electrical Code, or NEC, are designed to safeguard people and property from hazards arising from the use of electricity. Understanding how the code addresses various electrical installations is key to avoiding disputes and ensuring compliance. For example, Article 210 of the NEC covers branch circuits detailing requirements for conductor sizing, overcurrent protection, and permissible loads. When an inspector questions the adequacy of a conductor size, it's crucial to refer back to NEC Table 310.15b16 and other relevant tables to verify the ampacity of the conductor based on its insulation type, temperature rating, and installation conditions. If the conductor meets the requirements outlined in these tables for the intended load, you have a basis for discussing the issue with the inspector. Overcurrent protection is another area where disagreements can arise. The NEC specifies that overcurrent devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, must be selected and installed to protect conductors against overloads and short circuits. If an inspector believes that the overcurrent protection is inadequate, it's important to review NEC Article 240, which provides detailed requirements for overcurrent protection. This includes selecting the appropriate size of the overcurrent device based on the ampacity of the conductor and any applicable directing factors. Grounding and bonding are critical for electrical safety and are often subject to scrutiny during inspections. The NEC provides extensive requirements for grounding and bonding in Article 250. Grounding ensures that electrical systems have a low impedance path to ground, while bonding connects non-current carrying metal parts to create an electrically conductive path. If an inspector raises concerns about grounding or bonding, it's essential to carefully review the applicable requirements in Article 250 and provide documentation to demonstrate compliance. Wiring methods, such as the use of conduit, cable, and other wiring systems, are also governed by the NEC. Chapter 3 of the NEC provides detailed requirements for various wiring methods, including the types of conductors permitted, the installation methods, and the support requirements. If an inspector questions the suitability of a particular wiring method, it's important to consult the relevant sections of Chapter 3 and provide evidence that the installation meets the code requirements. Electrical equipment, such as panel boards, transformers, and generators, must also comply with the NEC. Chapter 4 of the NEC provides requirements for the installation and use of electrical equipment, including clearances, ventilation, and protection from physical damage. If an inspector has concerns about the installation of electrical equipment, it's important to review the applicable requirements in Chapter 4 and provide documentation to demonstrate compliance. Special occupancies such as healthcare facilities, hazardous locations, and swimming pools have additional requirements in the NEC. Chapter 5 of the NEC addresses these special occupancies, providing specific requirements for electrical installations in these areas. If an inspection involves a special occupancy, it's crucial to be familiar with the applicable requirements in Chapter 5 and ensure that the installation complies with these requirements. Voltage drop is another consideration in electrical installations. While the NEC does not mandate specific voltage drop limits, it recommends that voltage drop should not exceed 3% for branch circuits and 5% for feeders. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to malfunction and can reduce the efficiency of electrical systems. If an inspector raises concerns about voltage drop, it's important to perform calculations to determine the voltage drop in the circuit and take steps to minimize it if necessary. Arc fault circuit interrupters, or FCIs, and ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are safety devices that are required in many areas of a building. FCIs protect against arc faults, which can cause fires, while GFCIs protect against ground faults, which can cause electric shock. The NEC specifies where FCIs and GFCIs are required in Articles 210.12 and 210.8 respectively. If an inspector finds that FCIs or GFCIs are missing or improperly installed, it's important to correct the deficiencies to ensure compliance with the code. Finally, it's important to remember that the NEC is a minimum standard, and that local jurisdictions may have additional requirements that must be met. It's also important to stay up to date on the latest revisions to the NEC, as the code is updated every 3 years. Understanding the code and communicating effectively with inspectors are essential for ensuring electrical safety and compliance. In addition to understanding the specific code requirements, it's important to be familiar with the general principles of electrical safety. This includes understanding the hazards of electricity such as shock, arc flash, and fire, and knowing how to protect against these hazards. It's also important to follow safe work practices when working on electrical systems, such as the energizing circuits before working on them, using appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, and following lockout-tagout procedures. When an inspector raises a concern, it's important to listen carefully and ask questions to understand the basis for the concern. It's also important to be respectful and professional, even if you disagree with the inspector. Remember that the inspector is there to ensure that the electrical installation is safe and complies with the code. If you believe that the inspector is incorrect, it's important to present your case clearly and logically, providing evidence to support your position. This may include providing copies of the code, engineering calculations, or manufacturer specifications. If you are unable to resolve the issue with the inspector, you may have the option of appealing the decision to a higher authority. The appeals process varies depending on the jurisdiction, but it typically involves submitting a written appeal to a board or committee that is responsible for interpreting and enforcing the code. In some cases, it may be necessary to hire an attorney to represent you in the appeals process. Litigation should only be considered as a last resort, as it can be costly and time-consuming. However, if you believe that the inspector's decision is unreasonable and that you have a strong case, you may want to consider pursuing litigation. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure that the electrical installation is safe and complies with the code. By understanding the code, communicating effectively with inspectors, and following safe work practices, you can help to achieve this goal.